pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is the approval of the agenda. I believe we have some changes. The minutes for the 13th are not available because corrections had to be made. Tim Gilbert will not be with us tonight. He will be at the first meeting in January because the information I guess we have is that the report was not complete from the solid waste district. And I believe, Joe, don't you have a change?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that the 753 item, request for approval of ARPA funds be postponed, because I think most of us just saw those for the first time in this packet, and I think it would be advisable for us to consider those before we make a decision on them.
And may I make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman?
Pardon?
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If it's helpful to the town manager, we might want to just discuss the one item about the meeting infrastructure. I don't recall the right way of putting it, but you know what I'm
Okay.
talking about, Joe?
I do.
That perhaps we should at least
Anybody
discuss
have
that tonight?
anybody have a problem with that?
No.
No? Okay. No problem. All right. Is there a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion is approved. Citizens' comments or concerns, items not on the agenda. Please identify yourself if you wish to address the board.
I got one person.
Got anybody? Nobody?
There's somebody's coming into the meeting. They didn't hear your question, but I don't know who they are. Galaxy J7, it's a phone. So I'd say no right now.
Nothing there? Okay. All right, we move on to the village school, the police update.
And Peter, I got the message saying that he didn't have it done. They were gonna have to do it on the first meeting in January.
Okay. Discussion about the future of the Castleton Village School and the associated voting requirements. I believe Attorney Ted Parisi requested something on that.
Who's on Galaxy J7 5? Can you identify yourself so we know who is in the meeting?
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Jones. It's my call.
Okay, thank you. Ted's not online, and he's not here.
Mr. Chairman, I
Go.
got an email from Ted Parisi earlier today, and apparently he was under the impression that he would be joining our meeting at 8 o'clock. Let me just double check that. Yeah, between 8 and 8:15 is what he understood.
He didn't understand correctly. He's not here to defend himself, but I said between 8:30 and 8:45 if he wants to go into executive session,
That's all, okay.
to go to the end of the meeting.
Perhaps that's his intention.
So,
So he won't be on the normal part of the
So-
agenda.
do you want to wait, Joe?
I think we should.
Okay. All righty, we'll move on to fire truck replacement recommendation. Chief, Keith, go ahead.
My other officers were gonna be here, but like I said, you're running a little early. The last time I was here, you asked for some information on other departments and stuff like that, which we, put a packet together and provided for you, and the rundown on the other equipment, which we also provided with you and answered the questions, the letter I got from you, Jim. It is still my recommendation that we replace engine 6 with the truck from the HME truck that was bid out and was the low bid.
Is there a motion to replace engine 6 with the equipment from the guy who was the low bidder?
So moved.
Is there a second? Seeing no second? I guess there were maybe questions that have to be asked.
I will make a second for discussion.
Okay, you have a second. All right, discussion.
The first question I have is for the chief, and it is, can you address the mechanical status of engine 2 and what your plans are replacing that?
My replacement for engine 2 is on the end of its lifespan. Its sale value is near none because some of the issues on it with the spot on the frame and the rust on the body, there's no replacement value on that truck. My plan is to replace engine 2 in the ladder with a ladder truck with a pump on it.
What's your approximate time frame on that?
I would like to see this truck here, engine 6, does, as you well know, 75% of the work around here. It goes on all the smells and bells calls. It goes on our car accident calls. It's the apparatus that we roll here most of the time, and we have to rely on. That time frame is, like I said, there should be roughly $100,000 left in the sinking fund at the end of this year with the replacement of this truck. So within the next year, when the sinking fund has enough in it, that's when I would be looking to replace them 2 trucks.
So you would say approximately 2 years from now?
About a year and a half, 2 years from now is when we'd be looking to replace that truck.
Is
Talking with Stretch Ward, he thought that we could get that time frame out of that truck.
Oh. I was led to believe, and perhaps erroneously, that he would be reluctant to put a sticker on it again next year.
He told me that, we just talked the other day, that he said you could probably get 1 more year out of it, and then it needs to go.
Okay.
Keith, can you touch on what 2 trucks you're replacing with? You're replacing number 2,
And the ladder,
and which is what number?
ladder 1.
It's
It's the
ladder
only
1.
ladder truck we have
Okay, you're replacing engine 2 in ladder 1,
with another used ladder truck.
another used ladder truck that
Yeah.
has a holding.
Has a pump system on it. Our ladder truck now doesn't have a pump system on it.
Okay,
It's just a ladder.
and that would be a used truck?
Yes.
That ladder
Because the
truck?
price on a new ladder truck, that
Ungodly.
it's over $1 million.
Okay. So you're gonna replace those 2 trucks with another used ladder truck?
That would be my plan.
Okay. In a year and a half to 2 years?
Yes.
Okay,
Engine 2 sits here now and does very little work.
okay.
It's, unless we have a major structure fire where we use it for water supply or we use it on the road for traffic, engine 2 gets very little work now. I do not believe it should be a priority to be replaced.
Okay.
Other questions for Heath?
Yes, I had a conversation with Stretch, and he said he shouldn't have put a sticker on that truck. And he said he will not put another sticker on that truck. And those words come out of his mouth to me last week.
Okay, well, that ain't what he led me to believe last week, so.
We have a truck that's illegal, and you're asking firefighters to get in that truck, which is illegal, to be driving down the road. 1, I have a problem with that. 2 is, you're gonna do it in 2 years, you only got a year. Why are we gonna take a chance of replacing 6 when we got 2 in a lot worse shape? 6 doesn't carry enough water to put a teacup out. We're taking 2, which can do everything, and to begin with, engine 6 is not classified as an engine. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
The new one would be, because it has a
No,
big.
the one we have right now is not.
No, because it doesn't pump enough gallons of water a minute.
And we don't have enough ladders on that truck to make it reach, correct?
Yes.
And we don't have enough hoses on that truck to make it legit, correct?
Which
So
the
we're
new one,
calling it an engine, and we're not supposed to be calling it an engine because it's not an engine. It's a
That-
mini pumper.
it's a mini pumper, and the new one has all that you just described. Has the gallons per minute, has the hose stick,
But
and
it
has
doesn't
the
have the
ladder.
water capacity.
It has 300 gallons of water, and if most structure fires, if you've been there, if you don't get them with 300 gallons, you're not going to get them.
But why are we,
Everybody's going to be coming. That's why we have a tanker. That's why we have the other engines.
but if they don't come behind you, you're in trouble.
Well, if you only got
You
two.
got one of the, when you leave the station and you have a fire, 3 or that 2 should be the first truck out of here. Why take a teacup full of water when you got a truck sitting right there that's got a lot more water on it and can do everything?
Most
and
our
take a
structure
chance?
fires, engine 3 goes now first.
Well, that
if we
engine
got
3
the
should be on
manpower
highway
here.
to protect us. That engine 6 is not gonna protect us on that highway.
I disagree with all the back road, country roads we have around here. We've got to have 4-wheel drive to get there. We're not all truck
Better go
drivers
one time of the
anymore.
year.
We ain't all truck drivers anymore, Mike.
I understand that. I
Not
didn't say
everybody
nothing
comes
about
off the
being truck
farm.
drivers.
You've got guys driving trucks that probably shouldn't be, because that's what we have for, it's not a paid service here.
I know that.
So you got guys here that probably shouldn't be driving trucks that we train the best we can to be in
understand
there
that.
to do the job we have to do.
But on the same token, you got guys leaving here with 1 person in a truck. Not as of lately, we've had 2, but that's very unsafe to have 1 guy leave here. 1 guy cannot run a truck. No matter where he goes.
Mike, if you don't have the manpower, what's your recommendation?
Well, I mean, you gotta wait. There is people coming, but you gotta wait to leave here with 2 people. You can't leave here with 1 person. It's unsafe. What happens if something happens to him? There's nobody to help him. Nobody.
There's a bunch of us that go direct.
I understand that.
So if he gets there with the truck, we can go to work.
But I think you should do 6. Does not need to be replaced. My opinion right now, I think you got more problems with 2. We don't have enough hydrants in this town to begin with. And if you lose 6, I mean, you lose 2, what have you got to go fight fires with other than a tanker and 3? You're taking our biggest tanker
The
biggest
new
truck that we
truck,
have.
the new truck has the pumping capacity to do that. It's got
If
the
you don't
same
have a
pump.
hydrant, Heath, what are you gonna do? You're gonna wait
Got
for
the
a truck.
tanker.
Okay, guys, don't interrupt each other, please. Who's on first now?
Well, I heard that 75% engine 6 goes on. Engine 2 just sits in the shop here.
2 sits here 75 to 80% of the time.
You're saying-
Doesn't go out of the barn.
You're saying just the opposite. You're saying 2 should go out first before 6 does.
Right,
But
'cause you-
but it's not.
It's not, it's
now.
sitting here, or 3 should be out of here. When that highway calls, 3 should be the first truck out of here to go on that highway to protect everybody and to at least block everything. Engine 6 will not block nothing compared to engine 3. When you're up there dealing with cars 70 miles an hour going by you.
But you do say engine 3.
Okay,
goes on.
okay, one at a time. Go ahead, Bob.
I'm just,
If you have enough manpower, that one of the other bigger trucks follows up. Yes.
if engine 6 goes out 75% of the time and it seems to be working now, I don't, no disrespect to you.
No, it's
Mr.
It's been there 30 years we've run a mini pumper out of the door first here. I've been here over 30 years now.
So it
And a
obviously
mini
is
pumper has been the first truck out of the door.
It's obviously working.
Since
otherwise you wouldn't do that.
1978, Castleton has owned a mini pumper and it's been the first truck out the door.
Any other questions for Heath? Joe?
But this is not so much a question, but, I mean, obviously, I'm not on the fire department, and I don't have any direct experience, and I can't really speak knowledgeably about some of these issues. But I respect Mike Holden and some of the questions that Dick asked. From my perspective as a select board member, my sense of the board is that it's very supportive of the fire department and wants to make sure that we have the kind of equipment that you need to keep this town safe. But this sounds like a complicated issue, and I wonder if we can have a further process to have a version of this conversation and come to agreement on what the priorities should be as to the order, the sequence of which trucks get replaced. And, I mean, my personal preference would be not to vote on this at this time, but to have that conversation and see if we can find a point of mutual agreement that we can all move forward on.
Okay. Is there a motion then to table the motion?
I would be willing to make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion on tabling it? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Right.
Aye. Motion is tabled.
What's my further direction, Mr. Chair?
Further direction is just exactly what Joe Mark said, and that is to try to reach mutual concern on this. I had a number of questions, but I guess they've already, most of them have been answered.
I guess from my perspective, it would probably be helpful to have a follow-up meeting of some sort
Okay?
of a subset of the board with Heath and anyone else that he wants to bring to the table to discuss, options and next steps.
Okay? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do the officers have a problem with having a truck committee, which would include members of the department who are not officers?
We asked about that from start and nobody come forward.
I believe the information we received is that a member of the department asked that question at a meeting, and the answer he received was that the officers would take care of it.
I'm a
Time out.
secretary.
Why don't you folks come on down front? You're officers.
Been offered multiple times to the membership to have a truck committee. The ones that were interested came on and said that they didn't have time to do
You
it.
folks can sit down, you don't have to stand up. Only one here is at attention is Mike.
The only one that showed interest was the officers and one other member, and then he didn't show up when we said we were gonna start talking about it, so.
Well, there seems to be a discrepancy there too, as to a difference of opinion. But perhaps that might be something with, it might be a way to go. And because there certainly are members of the department who do not agree with this proposal.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, I respect that. I respect that, but doesn't usually your department heads are the ones that run your department and the ones that move it forward?
You've just answered my question, Heath.
I'm just asking because you're gonna, just in a few minutes, you're going to talk about another one, and it would be like saying that the crew members are gonna pick up the equipment for there.
No, we didn't say that. That was not what was said.
Sure.
We asked that they be, my suggestion is that they be given the opportunity to work with the officers and to come back with a proposal that would be in the best interest of the community. That's all.
They have been, I know who you're talking about. If you want to send the name, then send the name.
I don't do that.
Okay,
So,
well, I know
well,
who you're talking
well-
about, and he sat on committees when we were there, and we had representatives from big trucks and small trucks and all kinds of stuff. We put a lot of time into this.
Okay, all right. Anything else on this matter? Thank you very
Give it
much.
some thought, Jim,
ladies
and I'll
and
come
gentlemen.
back with a suggestion on how we should proceed. I think Mr. Mark's suggestion started a good thought process, but give us some thought, and I'll come up with a way we can sit down and
The
figure
other
something
question
out.
I have is, I take minutes to the meetings, and if we're saying that this was brought up and wasn't brought up and stuff, should I go back through my minutes?
Sure you can, certainly. That's what minutes are for. Okay,
Thank you.
shall we move on?
I'm ready, sir.
My glasses got fogged up. Approval of
Take your best
chain
shot.
hoist and trolley at the highway garage. Brent Clark. You're the trolley man.
Well, I didn't do the legwork on this, but
I can talk on it, Brian, if you.
I got all of his notes. So he kind of gave me the rundown, but I know we went out to everywhere, and the best price was Fastenal, and the other part of the deal was they would come, they would set it up for us, and they would do the first annual inspection.
Did I ask some questions, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Did you have any other bidders at all, Brent, to your knowledge?
I didn't see the other bids, but I know he contacted a lot of people. He was in there working on it. I haven't seen the other prices.
Well, I'm only asking the question because just because he made phone calls doesn't mean he got responses. We know.
I know we,
I know the answer to this one. He reached out to places and due to travel distance, people didn't want to do it, and we didn't even know Fastenal was a recommendation by one of the places he called because it was closer, and they actually agreed to do it. They came over and they took it over to their shop, they inspected it, It was so old, they couldn't even get parts for it. And then this all transpired from Wade Masseur's visit, to the safety visit to up to the garage. And the trolley, the I-beam, the trolley runs on the I-beam, and that was also found to be, beyond repair, not repairable. So they said, if you're gonna replace the chain fall, the hoist, you're gonna have to replace the trolley too, because it's not safe. So Chris called me and I said, yep, get the quote for it. So whatever we're doing, it's safe, and Fastenal was the only ones that replied that they could do the job.
Okay.
Right.
No, that's.
We got the old one back, but it was so bad it's in pieces sitting in a box. They wouldn't even put it
Scrap
back
iron.
together.
Scrap.
Okay,
I'm out of questions. Mr.
sure.
Chairman.
You're out of questions? Is there a motion regarding replacing the chain hoist and whatever, the trolley?
Before I make the motion, I have one more question for Brent. and that
Okay,
is,
go ahead.
Will 2955 do it?
That's what Chris is telling me. That's what the paperwork says. So that's what I'm going to
Well,
go
let's
with.
hope so, because my motion is that we authorize the town manager to purchase a chain hoist and associated equipment from Fastenal for the town garage for a price not to exceed $2,955.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion.
I got a question, is that
Sure.
including installation?
Yes. According to the papers I got, yes.
It'll show up for $29.55 and they'll
And they're
put it
gonna-
up and set it all up and,
Make sure it's inspected. Our annual inspection's done. That's what the paper says that I got.
Any other questions for Brent? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 You get the motions.
Motion passes.
Who seconded that one?
I did.
Mike Holden.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move on to submit quotes and discuss replacement of front-end loader and the grader. And Brett, I guess you're up again.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, can I start this one,
Okay, go ahead.
please? So the history on this one again is, I was approached by Chris and Brent about replacing the loader, and then the grader came into the conversation a short time after. Why I wanted to start this is, I still don't have information from our bank. I was out of the office today, I checked my voicemail when I got back, and I haven't got some information in the bank on the terms that we could, if you were to go and finance these, what terms they would give us, because that would help me provide you guys the answer of how much interest we pay over a term, if you're gonna finance it. There was also a little bit of a, I don't know, a surprise with the amount of money that was in the reserve, because we were operating on the concept that there was $302,000 in there. And subsequent to that, we found out that there's only $117,000 in there. So that's quite the difference. And it's just how money got moved around to pay for the other vehicles. We're still paying, we're paying on the tandem that we bought. And
Yep.
we just paid off the Ram. So that $40,000 payment for the Ram is no longer obligated to be paying for the Ram. We got 2 more years to pay $40,000 a year, times 2 years, for the tandem. So talking with Brent and Chris, looking at that loader, I drove that loader, gentlemen, and I know the transmission is weak as hell. It can't even climb something right now. It's so weak. So we looked at it and said, should be the number one priority. Taking that into account with a 4-year term, it keeps it under 40 grand a year, for 4 years. So that's where the loader, the front end loader comes in. Brent did all the work. I'll let you explain all that. And then we started talking about the grader, and at this time, I would ask that we need to go back and talk about the grader. We haven't finished that conversation, and
Yep.
About proposals to the select board and the grader.
Yep. And to skip ahead a little bit, the only reason the grader even came into the equation is when I had the cat guy here looking at the loader. He asked about the grader, and I said, well, that's next year, the year after. And that's when he told me what it was worth. He said, well, just so you know, right now, this is what that's worth. And so I mentioned it to Mike, and he's like, well, maybe we ought to get prices just so you guys have all the information. Because next year, it's not going to be worth that.
Why is that, Brent?
Because right now they have a market for it. Apparently they can take our grader and put it in a shipping container and send it over to Thailand and Brazil because they can work on it over there without the electronics. So like this year our grader's worth $75,000. Next year he said it'll probably be worth 30. So I didn't know if I was buying what he was feeding me. So I had Reggie come over from Windmill and look at it, and he's like, I wouldn't give you $40,000 for that thing. He goes, with all the leaks and everything. But he doesn't have the market for it. So that grader's 32 years old. I tried to find the information today of what we paid for it new, but my guess is we probably paid $100,000 for it when it was new, and they're offering us $75,000 for it. So, and next year, if we're going to lose $45,000 in equity, I just figured you guys should all have that information.
And building on that, what I wanted to be able to provide to the select board, but I don't have the information yet, was if we finance this is a longer finance period. So this is 7 to 10 years, is if I started running numbers on 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, and 10 years at 2.25% to 2.5%, because that's what I was told People's Bank, our bank, would give us. And Brent did some research with some of the vendors, and their interest rates are higher. So I looked at it and said, when I first talked to Brent, and said, if the interest that we pay over that term is less than the difference between that $75,000 that they'll give us now and the $30,000 they'll give us a year from now or 2 years from now, we make out.
Right.
As long as we don't, the interest isn't any more than that difference, that delta between
And what
the two.
it ended up being was $6,000 in our pocket, roughly. But what I ran with is I took the numbers that Mike gave me. So he said we pay about $80,000 a year is what our lease payments are. And he's like, get the numbers for the board, but you got to stay within them constraints. So knowing that we paid off the Ram, we had 2 payments left on the Dodge. So what I ran with on the loader was, if we bought the loader now, that would cost us $24,000 out of our sinking fund. What I told the cat guy on the grader, says what money we have in our sinking fund we want to keep. We don't have the money to put down on the grader. So if you want our grader now, you need to take that $75,000 that you give us for the grader, and you need to pay our next 2 years lease payments. Come up with the numbers. So he ran the numbers, and what it figures out to be is he would pay this year's, they would pay on a 7-year term, they would pay half of next year's, we'd have to pay half on a 10-year term, they would pay this year's, next year's, and $2,900 of our 3rd year, and then after that we'd have to start paying.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
We seem to be missing something here with you two guys.
You don't have all the paperwork?
Don't have anything.
Oh.
No, this was
Just a discussion, okay.
Yeah, this was a discussion.
Well, that's why you're feeling lost, Jim.
So my question is, maybe I'm lost, maybe it's in the paperwork. But what is the cost of a new grader?
The cost of a new grader is, if you were to buy one outright without a trade, $320,000.
320?
Yep. And the cost of a new loader is $154.
What
Or-
flavor are you talking
170,
about?
is it?
154 with our trade.
You talking about cat machines or something else?
Well, I went out to Cat, I went out to Case, and I went out to John Deere. And then I even went to Windmill to look into possibly a used loader, because when this all started, I didn't know what I had to work with. John Deere, between the strike and then the coronavirus, they can't order any new equipment right now. The John Deere dealer came down, he looked at our equipment, then he called me the next day, he goes, we're not taking any new orders. I said, you know when you're going to start taking new orders? Nope. So then Case came down, they gave us a bid on the loader, but Case stopped making their 2 bigger graders, so all they're making is small ones. So they can't even be in the running for our grader now because their biggest grader is smaller than what we have. So that left us with Caterpillar. Caterpillar is, right now, they're still looking at, so if you ordered a grader, you'd get it in the spring. If you ordered a loader, you'd get it in 3 months. So their equipment is still available. Their price, Cat's price, was actually very competitive with Cases, and then it came down to warranty and interest rate, and then me and Stretch, we kind of sat down because I felt like the mechanic should be, when it comes to getting a new piece of equipment, we should be on the same page. So we sat down and kind of just did a list of what our expectations are, what we think's important, and at the end of it, when we both did this, actually I think Chris calls it a decision matrix. When we got to the end of it, Caterpillar was the one that we both came out ranked the highest. So
I guess what I'm looking here at is the proposal that the officers of the fire department made was for $323,000. The grader, $320,000. The loader, $154,000. I come up with about $800,000. That's not walking around change for a little town like Castleton.
Nope.
Especially when we don't have only $117,000 in the reserve for, which would be for the grader and the loader.
Can I speak to that? I
Go ahead, Mike.
we don't disagree with that, it's a lot of money, I mean, that, we can do the math on that.
Yeah.
But the issue is, we program for replacements of vehicles, and the town has historically, and I'm not gonna try to carte blanche it or stereotype it, has kicked the can down the road on stuff, and we end up pushing it so far down the road that either equipment gets to a point where there's no trade value in it, or we're limping it around. And I don't think we're looking for a poor decision here. This was informational. Was to say that because my big thing with Brent was to say, I don't want to touch the reserve. It's $117,000. If anything goes wrong with our equipment right now, we'd have no money. So that's why I asked him to press the vendor to say that take that trade equity in that grader, because we're not going to get $75,000, what I'm hearing, a year from now or 2 years from now. If they paid the first 2 years of the payments with that equity and that value and trade value in that loader, that gets us beyond the last two payments of the tandem. So now we've got a $40,000 a year that's going to the loader, which we were paying on a Ram. That's a 4-year payment. When the tandem's done being paid for, then the first payment for the new grader would kick in. So we're not taking anything from the reserve. We're using equity in the vehicles to help pay some stuff down and buy the equipment that, well, I would say, and I hope that you would probably agree with me, that the loader out of the two vehicles is the top priority.
Loader is something we're gonna have to do. The loader's 18 years old. It's got 9,000 hours on it. I was surprised that they even offered us $25,000 trade for it. And Case offered us, that was the other reason why we decided on Cat. Case offered us 18.3 trade. Cat offered us 25. John Deere was 25 too, but then he said, oh, I can't get you a loader. It could be 18 months before I could get you a loader. But without the loader, the roads don't get sanded. We can go out and plow them, but we ain't going to sand them because all we're left with is the old John Deere backhoe over at the transfer station. And that's tired. It works good for packing dumpsters, but we start trying to load our trucks during a winter storm. That's not going to go well either. Windmill has no loaders to rent us if ours goes down because the two they had went out on snow duty. John Deere doesn't have any equipment. Case, the loader they had on their lot, they sold. And Caterpillar told me that all the loaders, as soon as they come in, they sell. So if ours goes down, we're going to have to find somebody. And I just named off all the dealers I think of. We're going to have to find somebody to beg, steal, and borrow from.
Well, you know,
So
Brent,
that's...
you've been on,
I walked into this, Jim, but I'm trying to get my hands around it.
well, I guess what I'm saying is, how would you qualify the highway equipment?
Actually-
In terms of other towns? In
Very
terms of
good.
quality?
Actually, I've gone through, I thought that question would come up.
You did.
I've been going through all the trucks, hours, miles. The truck that I drive most of the time is the oldest one. That's the 2003. And I use that to salt with because it's the oldest truck. And if you're going to run salt through something, you might as well use the oldest. That's Tom Pritchard's old truck. That's still goes good. That's why I've talked. I mean,
Do you have plans to replace any of the trucks in the next couple of years?
nope.
2, 3
I
years?
want to sandblast the 13 tandem.
Okay.
That's got 44,000 miles on it. That's still a good truck. But the body and the frame needs to get sandblasted and painted. I got a quote for $9,900. And I thought about getting the 03 done because the truck runs so good. It's still in great shape, has a couple holes in the body, small holes that can be patched up, sandblast it, paint it, and run it. Because realistically, the way we spec our trucks out, they're great for what we do. But when you go trade them in, every town buys new trucks now. So the trade-in you get from the dealer, they're taking, you know, you're not getting money for the plow, the wing, the inner body sander, because contractors don't use that. They're looking for a regular dump truck. So for what we do for work, it's great, but for trade-in, we're not gonna get,
Okay.
we might as well run them.
Other questions? Yes, Mike?
I had a question for Brent.
Go ahead.
So if we don't replace the trucks, would that oldest truck get past the last payment on the loader before you had to replace the truck? So you're talking 4 years.
Yep, I figure if we get, so the tandem, if we get that done, I know we're gonna at least be out to 27 or 28 before we need to replace that truck.
Okay, thanks. That's good information. Dick?
That's a question for Brent. We got, how many CDL trucks do we have and how old are they? And
So,
just give me a quick rundown. There's what, 4 or 5 of them, right?
yeah, we got the 2 tandems and 3 single axles. The oldest is the 03, and the newest is the 19. And actually now we are back to having a spare truck. So the one I actually drive is a spare because Stretch is doing full-time mechanic now, so we actually have 4 guys working on the road. So we're back to having a spare truck. And that's why if we buy a new grader, I want to set it up with the plow and the wing, because that also takes the place as a spare truck.
So what are the years of those 5 trucks?
The newest tandem's a 19.
Yep.
And then Heath's tandem's a 13. The newest single axle's a 15. And then Stretch's old single axle that Evan drives is a 13. And then the one I drive is an 03.
Okay.
The truck with the most miles on it is the one I drive that has 70,000 on it. Heath's 13 tandem has 44,000 miles on it.
And those are the 2 most tired ones in your opinion?
Um,
Body-wise?
Just body-wise. Truck-wise, I mean, that old 4400 that I drive is, I mean, I've been in every storm. I've had it out plowing and winging and salting, and I haven't had any problems with it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Brent?
I had a couple. The only thing to think about is to tie in with Brent. I made some phone calls around. I've been doing this a long time, and with availability, if we don't do something with a loader, we're gonna lose a transmission, and then you're gonna start dumping a whole lot of money into that loader that's worth absolutely nothing as it is, and then you're gonna put a new transmission in it, and you're gonna have to do a bunch of other stuff to it. And right now, we can get a loader. Like he said, while we can still get one, I think we're gonna be crazy not to, due to the fact you gotta have something to load with. We are getting a quick attach on this new one, with forks, and it's gonna have a lot more multi-purposes that we can do with that same loader. And with a greater thought, you are gonna get, right now at 75,000. Next year is gonna be 25 to 30,000. And right now, after CAT, I don't believe you're gonna see anybody have any for 2 or 3 years. And to think about, we can still get one, you might wanna try to get one, because I got a hunch it's gonna get worse to try to get anything new as time goes on, because times are getting worse.
Yes, Dick?
Leads me to one more question. This is either for Brent or Mike or both, and that's, these numbers you threw out about trade-in and purchase price from CAT, how long are they good for, do you think?
The grader goes up 5% on the first, and the loader goes up 3% on the first.
What about the trade-in values? They gonna be good for a
The
little
trade-in values are gonna be good as long as, the only thing the CAT guy said to me goes, well, I'm not gonna just give you 75,000 cash for your grader, you know, obviously he wants us to buy CAT, but other than that, yeah, it'll be good.
Well, that makes sense. So how long can we kick this can down the road, I guess, is my question.
I didn't expect you guys were gonna make a decision tonight, but if we're serious about the loader, I will call him tomorrow and see if I can get him to hold that price. I'm not gonna make any promises, but.
Well, I seriously believe we need to do something, so.
Well, what I've struggled with is, like I said, I took numbers from Mike, what I have to work with in the budget, because we didn't want an increase there. But realistically, we have a lot of equipment. I've tried to figure out with what I have for manpower, I don't need that many, I don't need that many 1-tons and whatever. And so I've been trying to work this out, because the replacement schedule that we have on file is unrealistic. We're already off it. There's no way with $80,000 a year, we're gonna, we can buy a new truck every 7 years and keep up with the excavator, the grader, the loader. And without the equipment, the trucks do us no good, because the equipment does the work. So somewhere I'm trying to find how we're gonna make it all work and not have an increase.
Okay, so are you going to continue to work with Mike, and Mike's gonna work on the interest rates and what it would cost and so on, and,
When Chris gets back, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We'll sit down with the information that we've got since he's, been on vacation and work up that proposal back to the select board at a future meeting.
okay? That agreeable to everyone?
It is.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot, Brett.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brent. Nice job.
Thanks, Brett.
He wanted to come in person so he can make, everybody could see him, so we got, thank you.
Yeah, I should have
Thank
done
you
that
for
before I came in asking for a couple $100,000, but.
Yeah, yeah.
Or at least know who he is now. I had no clue who Brett Clark was.
Yeah, that's why he wanted to come in person.
I
so-
knew who you were. We've met 100 times.
Oh, we have?
Yeah, when I was on the fire department.
Our time in jail together.
Yeah, must be.
Brent and I have
Okay,
been in burning buildings together.
We'll move on.
I'm gonna get out of here and get some sleep, guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brett, for coming. Discussion, is there any reason to discuss the possible use of the ARCA funds? If you have questions, maybe for Mike?
Well, we did want to talk about meetings, technology for meetings in the.
Yes,
public
that's
safety building.
correct, yeah. Does someone wish to make a motion to use the ARCA funds for upgrading the technology here? I believe we have a quote on that, don't we, Mike?
We did, and Mr. Mark asked a question about whether or not that was enough. It seemed kind of low. So I did reach back out to Tim McLaughlin over at Vermont Digital and asked him, could he look at this again to make sure that everything that we discussed and wanted was included. And his response was, after Christmas, I'll come over and I'll look at the rooms again. We'll make sure that's what you want.
Okay,
So I don't have any answer besides, it's after Christmas now, so
yes, it is.
we'll get him back over here and look at it again.
Okay. I guess we got our answer on that.
Guess we don't need a motion now.
No, I guess you don't.
And
Joe?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. A number of the members of the board had recovering CU, Castleton University sewer funds. And as Mike knows, I spent some time talking to one of the VCLT members, and we talked about this among other topics, and there is a methodology that has been developed to determine lost revenue. And I had got the impression, based on that conversation, that using that methodology would be more beneficial to the town financially than itemizing individual sources of lost revenue. And I sent a link to the methodology to Mike this afternoon, and I suspect that is the way we should go, but not having the numbers, not having attempted to use the methodology, I can't say for sure.
Okay, Mike?
so Melanie, or not Melanie, sorry, I apologize. Christine Atori sat through that training class on how to use that formula and so when Melanie got back from vacation, this was a few weeks ago, Christine sat down and showed us how it worked, and Melanie started plugging numbers in there with Christine. I have not seen the results, nor have I asked for them yet, but they did. We've received the training. A member of the town has received the training to know how to do all this. So I got to check with them to see if they've not finished it yet, or they finished it and just waiting for me to come back to them. I don't know yet, but we do have all the tools to do it, and Christine had the know-how,
Okay.
know how to do it, I guess.
All right, anything else on this item? Joe?
Well, it would, before we, address this particular issue, which 3 board members have identified as a priority, I think it would be good to know from Melanie or whomever what the bottom line is that we could count on for lost revenue recovery. There was a suggestion that it may be in the neighborhood of 4% of the town revenue, and which would be a substantial amount.
Okay.
Just a question. I'm a little confused, Joe. Where is the 4% coming from? VLCT is gonna step up to the plate? Is that what?
No.
I don't understand when you say methodology. I don't, either we get the money or we don't. I don't,
We've got the money.
I don't understand what he's,
Go ahead, Joe.
We have the money.
Yeah, we
We've
have.
received essentially $700,000 of ARPA funds. We will receive essentially another $700,000 next year. There are some fairly strict guidelines as to how we can use that, except that money that we receive for lost revenue recovery is free of all of those guidelines. We can spend that money on any priority that we consider important. Everything else has to conform to the U.S. Department of Treasury criteria for expenditures, and those are fairly restrictive. They do include public meeting and technology enhancement, and a number of other items related to water and sewer and other priorities. But the benefits of identifying lost revenue is, it's our money. We're taking it from essentially the 1.4 million that we will be getting, but we can set it aside and use it much more flexibly than we can all the rest of it.
So you asked a question, Mr. Spalding, about the salt and sand shed.
yes.
The ARPA money under the Treasury's guidelines, that wouldn't qualify. But if this 4.1%, this number that gets generated, say it's, and don't hold me to this number, say it's $200,000 under this lost revenue generator, this.
Of the 1.4,
Right,
okay.
of revenue, of the lost revenue,
Lost
there's a whole
revenue.
calculator. Then the board could decide they want to use a portion of that money, because it's a normal provision of government. Well, highway department, that, those type are normal provisions of government. So the board could, at that point, say, we want to put some of that money toward the salt and sand shed. So that's what Joe's talking about, the flexibility, is it, under normal ARPA standards or rules, you couldn't use it for a salt and sand shed.
I see, so you're kind of going around the back door.
So you're gonna get this pot of money if you go through that revenue generator and you get that 4.1% of the lost revenue, this generator, this formula. That's all it is. It uses NEMRIC and it pulls numbers from certain lines and it comes up with a number. And then that number would be that pot of money, I'll call it that you have much broader discretion over than you do the regular stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Joe or for Mike? At least that gets our foot in the door as to what board members are thinking, hopefully. Okay, we would move on. Adoption of town purchasing and financial policies. Town manager.
Hopefully everybody has that copy, and they've had a chance to look at it. Because I explained last meeting, it was pirated from the town of Norwich, and it was, they got it
Got it?
as a model policy from the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. So it has, this right here takes some of our older policies and it combines it into one updated master financial policy. Talks about bids, it could be how much each department head is authorized to spend. How we handle cash, what safeguards we have in place. The same person that's taking money isn't the one that's making a deposit. So this is all stuff that's been vetted through Pace and Hawley, our auditors. They ask the same type questions, and it's all just a bunch of safeguards. And the biggest thing that's always been a source of discussion or a point of discussion for the auditor was that we take cash, and cash leaves a lot of room for fraud or theft, and so we still take it at the beach and we still take cash at the transfer station. So those are the two places that we really are the biggest, places that we take cash. I mean, somebody can come and pay their taxes with cash too, but that doesn't normally happen.
Any
So
other
this-
questions for Mike on this? Are you recommending we adopt it, Mike?
Pending your, if you've read it and you agree with it, certainly I'd love to hear, so I can get this thing either amended, if you find something there you don't like or don't think is right, and I can go back and research it, or, and provide an answer, but this is what I took from it's basically the league's model policy. Looked at ours, said, is it mirroring what we do for business now, where we can, so we're not changing how we do business, especially if it aligns with what the league is recommending. And this is what we come up with, or I come up with. And I've given it to the staff, and nobody's come back with me and said, this is egregious, this is terrible.
Okay, based on that, is there a motion?
Well, I don't want to rush the process, but I've read this. It's kind of stuff that puts you to sleep.
Definitely.
But I didn't find any problems with it, and if you, Mr. Chair, are open to a motion to approve this, I'd be willing to make a motion to approve this document tonight.
Is that the motion, Joe?
It is. I would
It is.
recommend
Is
that
there
we
a second?
approve
Is there
the
a second?
draft master financial policy submitted by the manager on December 13th, 2021.
I'll second that.
I'll second
And
it.
a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion
I went
passes.
through it 2 weeks ago, Joe, and you're right, it will put you to sleep.
Annual town report cover, report, dedication, and selectmen report. Mr. Town Manager.
Mr. Chairman, so this was only to stimulate some conversation before we get our backs pinned against the wall on getting the annual town report to the printer. Normally, it's been customary that the select board has has input on what goes on the cover of the town report. And as far as the dedication, if there's a person that you believe should be in there, remember, we're a year behind. This was for the last year. That's where it gets confusing. When people, they're like, oh, this person. I'm like, well, someone may pass away like Frank Taggart did.
That's what I was thinking.
But Frank would be next year, not this year. And so I went through this and I was thinking whether some names of people or things that happened. The only person I could think of retired or did something was with Paul Egan, retired from the highway department. I heard a recommendation for the cover was we should put the assisted living facilities drawing, their sketch, the conceptual drawing on the front of it. That's one thing I heard. Well, actually, the only thing I've heard. And then the select board report, the comment on here was, is a member of the select board going to write the report this year for the select board? I've done it for 2 years. And I really, it's always been at the last minute, and it doesn't, I'm not sure if it accurately reflects what you might want to say in there. So, with COVID and everything that's happened, I wanted to see if a select board member, we could look at last year's, year before, to get an idea of what's written, but you could, if someone wanted to write that
Does
for the
anyone
select board.
object to Mike doing it again, since he did such a fine job?
No, I'm all for it.
I was gonna make a motion and have Mr. Lamy do it, since,
I would support that motion, Mr. Smolden.
would you?
I would.
Very nice of you, gentlemen.
I thought you would appreciate it.
I'd even second the second.
I think you would appreciate our vote of confidence, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I definitely do.
I'll make the motion, Mr.
Warms
Lamy.
my heart.
Mr. Lamy puts the report together, has it for the next meeting.
I'll second it.
Joe?
I'm going to try to distract those guys. I have a suggestion. I can't recall our ever recognizing a town business in the town report, but I'd be enthusiastic about seeing Woodard's Marine recognized on the cover. I think that was prompted for me by Heath's report about the support they provide to the fire department on structure fires on lake properties. But I can certainly attest to the fact through my sailing camp experience that they are very responsive and generous whenever there's a need. And it kind of breaks a pattern, and I would understand if people don't want to go that direction, but there's a thought.
Is that a motion, Joe?
As a cover or as a dedication?
Cover, is it cover or dedication?
Oh, I didn't think we were making two separate decisions here. I'm sorry.
Let's try one.
As a cover. I
As a
think
cover.
it makes a better cover than a dedication.
Okay, is there a
That's an
second?
outstanding idea.
Is that a second, Dick?
It certainly is. If that's a motion, this is a second.
That's a motion.
That's a motion and a
Have a
second.
second, Mr. Chairman.
Are we gonna forget about the first motion made, though, instead of moving on to a second motion? I made a motion about.
I was trying to
Getting the
curry
town
favor
before
with
Valid,
the chairman.
valid attempt
Through
at
you, Mr.
distraction.
Levy.
Oh, I got it. They'll be done. No
Oh,
problem.
I'd like to vote on it, and see if the rest of the board members support it.
Well,
That would
Jim,
be,
if you would be, going back to the first thing that these guys were talking about, if you would be willing to prepare a draft that we could look at,
of course I would.
and then, you know, the five of us can collaborate on it, I think that would be quite helpful.
Well, if one of you would rather do it, you know, I would reluctantly allow you to do that if you wanted. But if you want me to do a draft, we'll do it.
I'd appreciate that.
No problem.
I would too.
I guess that's taken care of. Now the dedication.
No, we're talking about.
I mean, the front cover. The front cover. We have a motion and a second that the front cover would be Woodard Marine. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes.
I do have a comment concerning the town report. I think, Jim, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
I don't think that anything concerning the future possible senior living facility should be mentioned in the town report.
No.
I think that it would be inappropriate for us to do anything there, either for or
Yeah.
against that
I
action.
think your suggestion is well taken. Okay,
What about the dedication, though?
dedication,
I'm prepared to address that.
okay?
I think it's, we still have a pandemic, and I think we still need to acknowledge the frontline workers who have been serving us through that tragedy.
Now, just to clarify, but last year, I believe the cover was to all the frontline
It was.
workers, but was there something in the report too about it? I don't recall.
Can't recall.
I don't off the top of my head.
You
I
don't?
I don't think there was a write-up on it.
Okay, all right, okay. So that's your motion, Joe?
Yeah, and personally, I felt this way last year, I feel this way again this year. I know we used little, images from a scrapbook somewhere that were kind of generic. I'd love to see a collage of photos that included, our fire department, our highway garage staff, but also our post office people, our, the folks that serve us at the diner, at the Sunrise. I don't know. I mean, I'd be personally willing to try to get a bunch of pictures of some of those people if anyway, I think it's more personalized than the kind of.
We tried messing around with that last year, and we just couldn't get it stuffed down in there
Okay.
without leaving somebody out and making people feel.
I withdraw my comment because I'm really talking about a cover, and we've made a decision about a cover.
Yeah. You're-
So but a dedication within for frontline workers.
Yes, and
Okay.
I wouldn't restrict it to town employees
Right.
alone.
No,
Yep.
of course not.
No, because you gotta talk about, even the nice young person who makes your sandwich at the deli is
Exactly.
part of this.
Okay?
No.
Any objections to that? Do we have a motion on that? Then let's get one.
I'll make one.
Go ahead,
I'll second
Joe.
it. I'll second it. Is Joe taking the pictures? Are you the?
I'll take a picture of Woodard's if you need it, but we don't, that's
We're
the
not gonna
only,
do the other?
the only pictures we need.
Well, if we do a dedication to the frontline workers, we can just try to make sure that either we just say that or we make sure we think of everybody because
Yeah,
we
we
don't wanna.
list the
That's
categories.
the problem with that, yeah.
Yeah.
If you forget somebody, you got trouble.
Well, you don't name names, you list categories.
Yeah,
So Joe made the motion and someone seconded?
I did.
Any other
That's for our
discussion?
dedication page, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, we're on to the non-controversial item, the budget. Joe?
Could we move at this point to the Castleton Village School agenda item?
I think Ted wanted some of that in executive session, Ted, is that correct? Yeah, he does, so I guess we better
Okay.
hold off on that, Joe. Okay, now moving on to the budget. Is there a motion on the budget?
You find the right page.
I think we are still at December 13th,
I believe so.
That's the version I assumed was the
12/13/2021.
Well, that is the third draft.
Correct. The one we received at the last meeting.
Right. So what form would a motion take, Mr. Chairman?
Whatever form you'd like, Joe.
Well, I'd be prepared to make a motion that we approve the third draft of the budget submitted to the Select Board on December 13th, 2021.
It needs to have a number in it too, Joe, the motion.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Well,
Are we gonna,
I'll second it for discussion, but
Which,
okay,
which would
we need to discuss it.
Would be this number here. Yeah, you're at the.
provide a total expenditure amount of $3,538,382.
is that, okay, questions? Do we have a second on that?
I second it, but just
For
for
discussion?
discussion, yeah.
Okay,
I'm not prepared to vote on it yet.
okay. He's not prepared to vote on it? or-
I'm not till we have a couple clarifications.
Sure, certainly. What, yes, Joe?
Well,
I'll
I
come right back
think
to
one of the
that.
questions that I raised in our last meeting was in regards to the essentially $50,000 increase in the recreation budget that is associated with the Rec Commission's proposal to create a full-time position as a recreation director. And as I said at the time, I'm not, that represents essentially half of the increase in this budget over last year's budget. And I personally do not have a sense of the pulse of the community as to whether individuals are supportive of creating that additional expense in recreation, and if there's a way in which we can split the funding of the rec committee at a recreation department at the current level, apart from increasing the rec budget in order to create a full-time director position, I think that would be desirable.
It would seem as though if it is the board's pleasure, the full-time recreation director amount could be removed from the budget and be voted on as a special item, indicating it's not in the budget, as are some other items as well. And if the voters choose to approve it, then they approve it. And if they choose not to, that's their decision. They're paying the bills.
I'd be in favor of that.
I'd second that.
Well, we can't second, we got a
Okay.
motion. Not yet, Mike.
So that would be an amendment to the
Why don't-
motion.
Yeah, you need an amendment, yeah.
For clarification, can I ask a question to Mr. Mark?
Sure.
For clarification, Joe, what you're saying is that you want to reduce the amount of the motion for the budget and then have that as a separate item?
Well,
A separate motion, or do you want to vote on a budget of 3.538 million and then have, when the warning is created, have a separate ballot item?
I was thinking
concerning that
more
item.
of the latter.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, that we currently have a recreation budget total, but we could make that two separate amounts. One that would be identified as program and part-time personnel, which I think is what we have done in the past, and the second would be an additional amount in the neighborhood of $50,000 that would be used to convert personnel from part-time to full-time.
Is that more cumbersome? If you vote the total amount includes a full-time recreation director. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
So if you're
but-
going to put that on as a special item, don't you therefore reduce that amount by, what is it, 53,000?
I just ran it, I just put it in the spreadsheet, it reduced, I got the new number here.
What's the new number?
3,534,206, which is a 3.1% increase. It was 3.3, but the numbers changed. That was keeping the two part-time rec directors' budget in there. Amy and Melinda's.
Plus the full-time.
But, and I took the full-time rec director out.
You took it out? You only brought it down $2,000?
That's my question.
Something's not right there, Mike.
Yeah.
Well,
Your total amount of increase was 109,000.
let me go
If you
back.
take 53,000 out,
Let me make sure it calculated it correctly.
I,
Because it went from the original amount down to $17,001.18 is what it would come up to for with a 3% increase for Amy and Melinda.
why do we need, if you're going to have a full-time director, why do we need two part-time directors?
Well, what happens if the town doesn't vote to have a full-time rec director and they said, we like it the way it was? Then we'd have to hire two more people because Amy and Melinda are gone.
Well, I thought we were told that if we didn't have a full-time director, there wasn't going to be any rec program.
Well, they have to find somebody, Jim. They don't have anybody right now, but I
They
think
have it
that would be the
both
goal.
ways.
Wouldn't that be the goal, is to try to find someone?
For what?
If they have nobody, they're
For
gonna.
part-time?
Yeah. I know it goes against what they wanna do, but if it failed to vote with the town and there was nobody running rec, then there'd be no programs. At least this would give them money to at least go find the part-time rec people. Just a
I
thought.
hear you, I
Just a
understand.
thought.
I think you have to leave the two part-timers in there, like Mike says. I think you have
I
to leave them in
understand.
there. Because if the full-time director gets turned down, and you don't have the two part-timers in there, then you have nobody.
I got zero.
But if the full-time director gets approved, you still have the two part-timers in there.
Well,
What the voters need to know is what the
That was
net
my-
difference is,
Pardon?
in my opinion. The voters need to know what the net difference is.
Exactly.
Because and it
Exactly
needs to
they
be
need to know.
clear to the voters and all concerned
Yep.
that if they decide they want us to go out and hire a full-time rec director, that we will not hire two part-time directors as well.
Okay,
That only
that's
makes
why I
sense, but we
said,
need to be clear on
that
that.
makes it a lot clearer than
so
what
what
it
is the
was.
dollar figure for the two part-timers again?
I guess we need to figure.
$17,001.18. And I'm just looking at, I gotta read the right cell here.
So if they approve the 53,000, you take the 17 from that. I don't know how you're gonna explain that to the voters, but I get it, I understand.
What I would do is I would either vote up or down the total budget now. And then when we create the warning, we have to make sure that we specifically create that warning in such a way that there's a rec department budget, and then, which will include the two part-timers, and then what the net increase is if we go to a full-time, and then you have to say in that warning somehow that if we get a full-time rec director, we won't hire the two part-timers.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
that's
sure
gonna
what-
be very complicated.
Yes, what I mean. It's almost as complicated as the village school.
No, I think we can probably come up with the appropriate wording, but it's gonna have to be clear.
Yes.
Well, the warning will have it won't have these separate items for recreation. It will have a total recreation budget, correct?
Yep.
Which
What's it gonna be, Joe?
in the current proposal is $190,411. And last year was $8,827. So that's a, $82,000 increase.
And putting the new numbers in there and reading from the right cell, correct cells, the new total rec budget with the two part-timers included and the full-time rec numbers taken out, it's $159,235.
But why do we have on our spreadsheet $190,411?
Cause I just plugged the new numbers into here.
But that's not the budget you're giving us to review and approve.
I'm just trying to run numbers. You asked me what it would be like if we take this out or take that out. So I put the two rec directors back in the regular budget and took out the full-time, just to give you what those numbers would look like compared to what you have in your hands. So that number you just read off for total rec would be, that's counting the full-time rec director, but there's no part-time money in there, because we took it out to put the full-time one in there. That's what that reflects. But if you take out the full-time rec director and put the two part-time people back in there, that's $159,235.
What percent of increase is that?
For total recreation,
Yeah,
39%.
39%
There's
increase.
$45,000 overall increase
If
over
that's
last year.
with the part-timers and not the full-timers?
Yep, that's what it shows. Total recreation. Again,
I still want Joe's question answered, because how do you get to 190,000 then if you're doing what you're doing? Like,
that's why I'm kind of on the spot, guys. I'm trying to read a spreadsheet and make sure I'm reading from the correct cells. So you guys are seeing correct numbers. It changed the personnel. Oops, I gotta go back and find it here. The personnel for rec administration on your blue line under the total recreation administration, just below transfer station. That number now is for the personnel services is $17,001. Whereas the one you're looking at right here reflects.
It's 14, I think.
I got 16.
Page 14. Total recreation administration, okay. So right now with the, if you follow that column over on the, back up onto page 13, under personnel services, it was $44,000. You see that?
I think I got that, yeah.
So that's just the personnel, then you got benefits, because it's a full-time position, right? So just for the pay, for personnel services, it was $44,000. For the full-time rec, no part-time rec directors.
How are you going to explain that to the voters?
I am not.
You can't, how can you
I
explain
wasn't
that
even
in
going
a
there
warning? I mean, all we're doing is confusing the voters more than ever. I mean, we should be providing something that's clear and concise to the voters. And it doesn't appear to me that,
So do you take
That's
out the
what's
part-time
happening.
rec, Jim? Is that what you're saying? And just so, this is rec budget without any personnel in there. And it would be this much, and if you want to add a full-time director, it'd be this much.
why is the rec budget going up so much without the full-time director?
Well, $18,000 of that came from their programs. So they got 18,000 from the grant, which comes in as revenue, and they got 18, or not revenue, but, yeah, revenue from the people signing up for the programs. And the same amount goes out on the expenditure side. So it's it's a wash, but it shows up in revenue and it shows up in
Expenses.
expenses.
But that was this year,
Yeah,
not next year.
But
Right.
they programmed it for the same, they got money, or they grant stuff for this year as well, so it was a 2-year thing. So they're looking at, Martha said at their last meeting, that they're looking at doing it again, running those programs, so it should pay for itself. They used $18,000 based on last year.
That's the same explanation for special events that you gave us 2 meetings ago, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So that,
that's on this page here, Joe.
okay, gentlemen, what do you want to do?
I don't know.
That's, me too.
This budget sitting in front of us does not have the part-timers in it, Mike, but it has the full-timer in it. It's 51,422. That's why it's up 255%. Because this has the full-time.
What cell where you're looking at?
Well, I think, my page numbers don't match up with all your guys' page numbers, but I think I got the right sheet in front of me, because the 44,000 is in the top blue line, the closest to the pink.
Yeah, and then the 22,000 was below that.
20, well, mine says 23, 392, 292. And then it goes to 2,900, and it goes to 1,300, and for a total of 71,583.
See, is that what you guys got?
I've got,
I must have the wrong one.
I think you have a different version.
Got 1230.
It's the date on the bottom left corner of your
Yeah.
cover sheet.
Do I have the wrong one?
Yeah, you're close.
Yeah, it's,
This is the wrong
it's
one.
like 1213 right there.
Oh, okay. No, it doesn't say that.
No, that's what it was, that's the one. You got a new one that I gave you guys.
But
It
Yeah.
says 1213.
You're just off by a little bit. I mean, the number on mine is 70,952.
What page you on, Joe?
That's on page 14.
I got the wrong one.
Yeah, that's this one, right here.
I thought these were the wrong ones.
70,952, is that what you said?
Exactly.
Yeah, Bobby, it's right here if you wanna see
And the
it.
difference from this, last year to this year is
I must
50,000.
have it. I have no, these are
791.
all Novembers.
Okay,
I
where do
don't
we
know
go,
What
gentlemen?
can we do, Jim? What?
Do anything you want.
See right up there.
I don't have the
Joe?
wrong one.
I think it's going to be too difficult to try to present this issue the way I was proposing we present it, that is by giving the voters the choice as to whether to go to a full-time director. I think the numbers speak for themselves, and I think we should just consider the budget that Mike submitted to us and the total number that I spoke earlier, which is $3,538,382.
And that's 3.1%, Mike?
3.2%.
3.2, we're right back to 3.2 again, okay? Is that the motion?
That was my motion.
Is there a second?
Bob already seconded it.
You already second.
I did? Yeah, I
Discussion.
did.
You did.
I didn't want to vote on it. Yeah, we got
Okay, is there other discussion? I will vote against this reluctantly, because with the cost of inflation that people are dealing with groceries, gasoline, and everything else, I don't feel that they can absorb an increase in taxes this way. If it was something less than that, I would certainly be agreeable. If you allow me to tell a brief story, which when you're over 50 you can do, and that is this, that a few years ago, a reporter accidentally ran into former Governor Jim Douglas in Middlebury, which is of course his home. And the reporter said to the governor, "Have you ever thought about running for office again?" And he said, "Like Congress or the Senate?" And Jim said, "No, I have not." But he said, "I was thinking of doing something." The reporter sensed, hey, a story. So he said to him, "Well, what would you thinking of doing?" He said, "Well, I'm thinking of going to Montpelier." "Well, what would you do in Montpelier? You're already the governor." He said, "Well, I will be a lobbyist." "Well, who will you be a lobbyist for?" "The taxpayers, because they're the only ones that don't have a lobbyist." End of story.
I'm going to ask Mr. Jones if he would just touch on the budget's up 109,000. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And what part of that is recreation and what part of that is the highway department?
Well, recreation overall, total recreation budget is,
Of the 109, how much is the recreation
Yep.
responsible for that?
I have, I think the answer to that, if,
I'm
Bob,
just looking at this page,
when I ran the numbers, recreation added 51,000. Public Works added 32.6 thousand. The next largest contributor was special events, 22.3 thousand, mostly self-supporting. And then it's single digits after that.
Okay, so the two top items are the rec and then the highway.
Correct.
Okay.
Total public works, right? What you said, Joe?
Yes.
Any other questions? Shall I call the vote? Anyone object?
Uh,
Bob?
I just, so the rec that we're voting on does not have the two part-timers, but it has the full-time rec director. Am I correct when I say that?
You are correct.
Okay.
I think it should make a point, Mr. Chairman, on the transfer station, because
I thought you were gonna congratulate me on my point.
I did, I will congratulate you.
Yeah, okay. All
Publicly.
right, good.
So with the assessment that Hubbardton, that new assessment number on Hubbardton for their annual assessment when it went down, the operating budget versus the anticipated revenue is $4,332 difference. That's to the red. So all I'd say to the select board, what I'd like to say is, when you're thinking about this budget and what we've put in there for anticipated revenue in the operating budget, to make this thing cost neutral or not passed on to the taxpayer, you may have to look at raising something at the transfer station to offset that $4,332. My assessment, based upon what we pay, number of tons, is if you didn't touch any of the bags or add money to recycling, if you change the scale fee from $180 to $185, you exceed, it's a little over $6,000. So you would cover that $4,332 loss due to the assessment with Hubbardton, in a $5 increase per ton going over the scale.
We're gonna cover that under manager's report, don't we, Mike? We don't have to do that before this budget.
No, I just want to point out that what I talked about earlier, now that with the Hubbardton assessment, it does change. We're in the red rather than breaking even.
Okay, okay.
Okay, no other questions, discussion, I'll call the vote.
Oh, Nick's got.
Nick, you got a
Comment.
question?
I'm just gonna say that I'm going to reluctantly vote yes on this, simply because level funding a budget like this, when the costs of a lot of the uncontrollable costs like healthcare and fuel go up, a level funded budget is actually cutting certain items.
Are you referring to my former position?
I'm just telling you what I think, and so.
Well, what I want to
don't
say to
think
you
that-
is, government is the art of compromise. Somewhere between 109 and level funded is compromise. You're not always going to get what you want, and
You're not going to
maybe
let me
some
finish my
departments
comment.
won't always get what they want. But there is compromise in between, as far as I'm concerned. But when I still hear 3.1, when we were at 3.2, that's not a heck of a lot of compromise, that's all. No
I
question.
have nothing more to say.
Nothing going, okay. All
I was
right.
hoping you would finish, Dick.
Well, he won't let me finish, so I'm not going.
Sure I will, I'll be glad to.
I wanna hear what you have to
go
say.
right ahead.
Well, you did interrupt me, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Okay, so all I was gonna say is that, the level funded budget is not, in my opinion, responsible in this case, because we can't control the costs that are going up. I'm not saying we couldn't find some compromise, but I can't support a level funded budget, is what I'm trying to say.
That's okay. Anything else? Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No.
Four yes, four
I wanted to see
yeses,
how you'd react, that's all.
yeses, one no.
Usually 3-2.
Okay, let's move on.
Can I-
Manager's report.
I think Mr. Spalding.
I was just gonna say,
Sure.
when we divvy up these, I would rather not have the recreation committee. Joe knows what I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay.
whoever divvies these up
Yeah.
to talk about at the town meeting.
Mhm.
Just wanna put that out there.
No problem.
Okay.
Mike, you take note of that?
I did, I gave him the thumbs up.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, let's move on. Any questions for Mike on his manager's report?
Well, I'd be prepared to make a motion that we raise the fee for a ton of waste from 180 to 185.
I will happily second that.
Absolutely.
Okay, any discussion on that? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
That'd be 1 July.
Pardon?
1 July it would go up.
1 July, correct.
I'm gonna keep an eye on that, Mr. Town Manager, too.
Okay.
I'm hoping that you will be right on that.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. I believe we had a vote on that, okay?
Unanimous, yep.
Moving on. Any questions for Mike?
Yeah, let me get to that. His town report.
You have anything highlight, Mike, that you want to hit on?
Well, I think there was a question that was brought up last meeting, I think it was Mr. Spalding that brought it up, about the park and ride being dark. So I put it in here, I did go down there, we climbed up the ladder, well, I didn't climb the ladder, Paul did. And he had to come back, because he needed a special tool to open that thing up. I sent him a message yesterday, asked him if he was able to get back there the day after we went down. So on Friday, he would have been on Friday. And I haven't heard back from him, so I don't know, but he did go down there, and they looked at the door over here at the police station, and they were gonna go upstairs and look at the damage that was done by the water. But I asked them an update, and I haven't, but they did two of the things they were supposed to do. They could come and look at the door, and they did the park and ride.
Can I touch on that? The light on the north end is flickering on and off, so you guys did something to it. 'Cause
Okay.
it wasn't doing that at all the other night.
Okay.
So something's changed there.
We believe the batteries are probably the issue, it's not the controllers, because they all went dead, and it's unlikely that all the controllers went bad at once.
Sure.
What's that? Oh, Paul McClure.
Anything else, Mike?
No, I mean, I don't have anything particular, that's, unless they have questions of what's on here. I haven't received the report yet back from Alex Tolsky, I think is how you pronounce it, from the walkthrough of the Castleton Village School. So I'll be back in the office tomorrow, I can follow up. I did link him up directly with Chris Cole from the school district, to answer some of his questions. But I'm still expecting that we would have this report by, 4 more days. We got 4 more days. Hopefully I get it before the end of the month and can get it back to the select board. But we did the walkthrough and didn't find a lot that they would consider deferred maintenance. So, more to follow.
I had a couple questions for Mike.
Sure.
Well, why do we charge for microwaves at the transfer station, Mike? Because they're normally all metal. I don't know, why do we charge for them?
I have to ask a question, but I don't know. It's been standard practice, so I just kind of followed with it. I never questioned it.
Just curious.
I know that we take the glass out of them before,
Yeah.
and they threw the glass away, but the microwaves,
Okay.
It-
And the other thing is, we built the structure that goes over the CND.
Yep.
But I drove up through there the other day, Saturday, I think it was, Christmas Day. And they have all the mattresses on the outside getting rained on. I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose, don't it?
It certainly does.
If we can just at least cover them with a piece of plastic or something. I understand why they have them off to the side, because they want to put them on last.
Well, we had a bin at one point where they were putting in one of those, an older compost, or compactor bin.
Oh,
So they weren't
okay,
getting rained
covered.
on.
Yeah, there's
So
a
I'll have
bunch
to
of them
find
out
out.
there on the side.
Okay.
That was all.
Okay, anything for you, Mike Holden?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Joe? Joe's good? Dick?
Just one thing, Mike,
Sure.
that if I read your report correctly, the deadline for the Assistance to Firefighter Grant has been extended?
Yes.
And are we going to pursue 2 things that I know of, are air packs and engine 6?
That's correct. Unless, that's where tonight I was kind of wondering where this was gonna go, and, is it the engine six gonna be the grit, or is it gonna be something else? Cause if it's something else, then I need some time to start pulling information.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm still planning on going after the SCBA and engine six.
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of that. So,
Okay, anything else? Not, thank you, Mike. Moving on to purchase orders for approval. We have one purchase order and then the warrants.
Make a motion, we approve purchase order 047955 to Ferguson Waterworks.
Is there a second?
Second.
I gotta get the dollar amount, guys.
Okay,
The dollar amount, it's 120 feet of, I had this written down too. It's culverts, they're all culverts. 3 different sizes, for a total of $3,320.
I'll second that.
and a second, any discussion? Not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Now the warrants,
Make a motion, we approve warrant number 1227 for $188,771.14. Warrant 1227R for $3,775. Warrant 1224 for $1,696,974.97. Warrant 1216 for $6,264.43. Warrant number 1223P for $16,978.17. And warrant 1216P for $17,638.79.
I'll second it.
and a second, any discussion on the warrants? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved.
I'll make a motion that we approve number 1224P for $632.26, and number 1217P for $632.26.
I'll second it.
A second? Any discussion?
Recuse myself?
You recuse yourself? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Warrants are approved. I got one more for you,
Yeah,
Bob.
just keep signing, Jim. Just doing that. That's all.
There you go. Okay.
Tomorrow, you call me tomorrow, please? You wanna go or you want me to?
I'll go.
Need the exercise, I think, more than you.
So did I.
I'm
What do you
saying
think?
Oh, I thought you said I actually worked today.
No, those guys individually, but otherwise.
Actually, I spent a lot of time,
Okay, okay.
I spent a lot of time
You're
on the
gonna-
drawing board today,
You're
so
gonna get information tomorrow, right? Okay,
I talked to Melanie about it.
still work, but it's not really work.
Told Karen to stay home.
yeah.
You gave me that, Jim. You probably want that back.
Thanks.
Thank you. And how many should we have?
In all, we should have 8.
One of these.
I don't need this. Mike, you can have this back. I got mine's back in the office.
Okay. Maybe Bob wants it, because he didn't have an updated one.
Oh, yeah, I'll take it. If that's a,
You want this, Bob?
I'll take it, yeah.
Here you go.
I know I have it someplace. Not for one of these 4.
Bob, is this yours?
You know what to do with that one? What the hell was you do with that?
I didn't do it. Mine's back over there. I didn't think I had to bring it. I thought we were getting a new one.
I thought we were too, that's what it said in the new draft.
Yeah.
So I brought both of mine. Look at that. Did a nice job, Bobby. I think Jim did it because it was in his hands, so. I didn't need one, Bob.
But,
I didn't need one from you.
I have 4. Did you have 4? You don't bug me, I just thought you would, 'cause it seems like you almost planned it that way.
Sick of the truck riding.
Yeah, no, you don't have to.
Mr. Chairman.
Thanks,
No,
Dick.
I'll just keep, at least I got the record tonight.
Lower New York to here, 259.
It'll be on tape when they come in and out.
Got it right down pat, you know every
He's gonna
mile.
slow Jim down.
I designed 2 sets of French doors today.
I went out there with a lousy freaking.
We'll start
So
cutting
what-
lumber up tomorrow.
Okay, moving on. Select Board comments and/or concerns. Mike?
I had one, I wanted to follow up with Joe, and I've been thinking about it, about the light out here. And something really does need to be done, and I know Mike had said you would talk to CV, and they said that one light would cover it. I'm gonna kinda disagree with that, especially on the concerns that we have older people, a lot of them going to that medical center, and to come in here. That is one dark son of a gun out there, and that really needs to be lit up. You got a sidewalk now, it ends right in that driveway. You really gotta light that place up, and we gotta do something to light it up so that somebody doesn't get killed up there. You cannot see nothing.
What I've done, Mike, I asked Erica, took over in Polteny, she's the station operator down there now. I asked her if she could put the 85 watt bulb there so we could see what it looks like and determine if what else we need. And we'll see, because that's the highest they can go. So if it doesn't cover it, then we're gonna have to think of something different, but I'll at least give them a chance to do it.
Street light on the other side of the road.
Yeah, on the pole, it's right across there, and if it doesn't light that up, then we're gonna go somewhere else. And what I thinking about was, what can we put there that's not gonna blind people? If you put a big a bulb there, is it gonna blind someone? So it's something that, there's power there, because the
Can we sink another pole?
if we have CV to put a pole there, they'll put it in, those charges for the pole. I don't know what it's gonna cost right now.
Well worth it to put the pole in and light it up the right way.
And once I get some numbers, I can at least go to the medical center or the staff there and
No,
say,
they're gonna
this is what it's
split it
gonna
with us.
cost. Would you cost share with us?
Okay. Anything else?
I'm good, other than that.
Bob?
I'm also.
Bob? Joe?
Well,
We have a segment for citizen concerns?
You missed that, Mike.
You missed it, Mike,
That
but
was at the beginning,
It was in the beginning.
the very beginning.
Oh, seriously? I think, there's a gentleman in the room, bringing up the truck committee for the fire apparatus, Ellsworth. I wish if he could speak to you guys, that would be great if you could get him to Ellsworth, you could talk to them, tell them what we talked about.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. My name's Ellsworth Matthews. I am on Castleton Fire Department. I did ask, I believe it was in September, for a truck committee. Raised my hand, the table was sitting here. The chief looked at me and goes, the officers are going to bring this up first in the meeting, and we will get back to you if we want a truck committee. And that's how it was led.
Do I happen to know you?
I'm Ellsworth Matthews. I'm Kenny Beltwell's stepson.
No, I'm saying that because of the comment that was made tonight, which kind of inferred that there might have been some communication. Did I ever talk to you about this?
No, I don't know. I might have seen you someplace or something.
Might have seen me, but to
Yeah.
my recollection, there was no discussion. So you're doing this on your own, right?
I'm doing, no, I want to make sure that,
Okay.
there was, because Heather said that she has to go back in her records to find out if it was said. It was said.
Okay,
And Mike Finnegan was there
okay,
at the table when I asked for it,
okay.
okay?
That it?
And if,
Yeah,
my opinion,
I was sitting right next to him when he asked about a truck committee.
and
He
it,
basically was told by
my
the
opinion,
chief
Okay,
that the
hold it,
officers
guys.
would discuss it
Time out,
first,
one at a
and then they
time.
would go to the membership for a truck committee, and that did not happen.
Okay, thank you.
my opinion
Yeah.
Okay, I am on the fire department.
I just wanna make sure you guys are clear on this, because there's some confusion about it, but that's really what happened.
My opinion, there should be a truck committee on the fire department.
Okay.
Okay? And if the fire department cannot do a truck committee, then I believe it's up to you guys to recommend a truck committee for the fire department. That's my opinion.
All right.
Okay? And
Yep.
thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for being patient.
No problem. I mean, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that I did raise my hand and ask for a truck committee.
Okay.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry
Thanks,
we
Mike.
broke away from select board concerns. Any other
Thanks,
select?
guys.
Thanks, Mike.
I was just gonna say
Thank you, Mike.
that this afternoon I put a couple of reflectors on stakes out there, and they're worthless.
I saw one of them, Joe, so I don't know if they're worthless, but I saw one.
Not worth much.
Okay. Anything else for select board concerns, comments? If not, any reason for a brief recap, items for follow-up? Seeing none?
Oh, Mike's got his hand up.
I just wanted to confirm, if I could, Mr. Chairman, with the, for the town report, is the cover is Woodard's.
Yep.
You're gonna work on the comments for the select board, and the dedication page will be to frontline workers, all flavors.
Okay, is that it?
Is that correct?
That what we all understand?
That's my
Okay, no
understanding.
problem. That's it, Mike.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else on the recap? Okay, I believe we have reason for an executive session with the town attorney involving the possible acquisition of the village school. Is there a motion to go into executive session with Ted Parisi, town attorney, and the town manager
For real estate, so moved.
on real estate, correct? A second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. We're in executive session.